Ever felt trapped by your own thoughts, your own patterns? It's not just a feeling, it's a fundamental aspect of how our brains construct reality. In this video, we're going to pull back the curtain on the subtle, yet powerful ways our neural architecture limits our existence, and how shattering those limits could unlock a freedom you never imagined. You are living inside a simulation created by your own nervous system. Every thought you believe is yours was installed before you could speak. Every limit you experience is a construct, and the walls of your reality are made of nothing more than repeated neurological patterns firing in predetermined sequences. The question is not whether you can escape this. The question is whether you even recognize you are trapped. Let me be direct with you. Your brain is not designed to perceive reality. It is designed to filter reality down to the narrow bandwidth necessary for biological survival. The human brain processes approximately 11 million bits of sensory information every second. Your conscious awareness can handle about 40 bits per second. You are receiving 11 million pieces of data about reality, and you are consciously aware of 40. The rest is filtered out, discarded, deemed irrelevant by unconscious processes you did not design and cannot control. This is not philosophy. This is neuroscience. This is the documented, measurable limitation of human perception. And once you understand this, you begin to see that everything you think you know is just an interpretation, a construct. A story your nervous system tells you so you do not become paralyzed by the overwhelming complexity of what is actually happening. Your brain constructs reality using predictive models. It does not wait for sensory information to arrive and then process it. Instead, your brain is constantly generating predictions about what it expects to happen next, and it compares incoming sensory data against those predictions. This means you are not living in the present moment. You are living in your brain's prediction of the present moment, generated milliseconds before the actual sensory information arrives. You are always experiencing the past, dressed up as the present. Consider language. Language is not a neutral tool for expressing thoughts that already exist in your mind. Language structures thought itself. The categories your language provides determine what distinctions you can make in consciousness. This is why translation is never perfect. Different languages carve up reality into different conceptual categories entirely. When you learn a new language, you are not just learning new words. You are installing a new operating system for consciousness. Your entire culture is a reality construction system. Every institution, every social norm, every unquestioned assumption you inherited about how life works is part of a vast filtering mechanism that determines what you can perceive, what you can think, and what you could imagine as possible. You did not choose the system. You were born into it. It was installed in your nervous system before you developed the capacity for critical thought. Most people never question this. They assume their perception is accurate. They assume their thoughts are their own. They assume the boundaries of their current understanding represent the actual boundaries of reality. This is the fundamental delusion of human consciousness. We mistake the map for the territory. We mistake our model of reality for reality itself. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It is constantly looking for patterns in the environment, extracting statistical regularities, and building predictive models. This is how you learn what to believe about yourself, about other people, about what is possible and what is not possible in life. When you are told repeatedly as a child that you are not good at mathematics, your brain extracts that as a pattern. It builds a predictive model that says, I fail at mathematics. Then, when you encounter mathematics in the future, your brain activates that model, generates the prediction that you will fail, and this prediction influences your actual performance. The prediction becomes self-fulfilling. The pattern reinforces itself. You have predictive models for what kind of person you are, what you are capable of achieving, what other people think of you, what is dangerous, and what is safe. All of these models were built through exposure to repeated patterns in your environment. Most of them were installed before you were 7 years old, and now they run automatically, shaping your perception and behavior without your conscious awareness. The problem is that these models are not reality. They are simplified representations of patterns that existed in your past environment. But circumstances change. You are no longer in the environment that created those models, yet the models persist. They continue to run in the background, filtering your perception, limiting your behavior, and constraining what you believe is possible. Because these models operate unconsciously, you do not experience them as models. You experience them as reality itself. You do not think, I am running a predictive model that says I am not good at public speaking. You think I am not good at public speaking. That is just a fact about who I am. The first step in transcending your existential limits is recognizing that these are not facts. They are models. They are constructs. They can be updated with new data. But this requires awareness. It requires catching yourself in the act of running these automatic models and recognizing them as models rather than accepting them as truth. Most people operate with a fixed model of self. They believe they have a stable identity that persists over time. But neuroscience shows us something radically different. Your brain is plastic. The neural pathways that generate your sense of self are constantly being modified by experience. Identity is not a fixed structure, it is an ongoing process. Every experience you have changes your brain. Every thought you think strengthens certain neural connections and weakens others. You are literally reconstructing your brain moment by moment through the patterns of activity you engage in. The person you are today is not the person you were 10 years ago, and that is not just psychological development. That is physical restructuring of neural architecture. This means that who you are is not set. The limits you experience are not hardwired. The patterns you are trapped in are maintained only by repetition. If you change what you repeatedly do, you change who you are. This is not metaphor, this is observable neuroplasticity. But most people do not consciously choose what they repeatedly do. They operate on autopilot. They run the same routines, think the same thoughts, engage with the same people, consume the same information. Their brain predicts that tomorrow will be like today, and because they act on that prediction, tomorrow is like today. They are trapped in a loop of their own making. Breaking this loop requires introducing novelty. It requires doing things you have not done before. It requires exposing yourself to information that contradicts your current models. This is uncomfortable. Your brain interprets deviation from established patterns as danger. It generates anxiety as a signal to return to the familiar. But that anxiety is not a sign that you are in actual danger. It is a sign that you are challenging an existing model. The people who experience radical personal transformation are people who expose themselves to sufficiently novel experiences that their brain is forced to build new models. They travel to foreign countries where their cultural assumptions do not apply. They learn skills that were not part of their previous identity. They form relationships with people who see the world differently. And over time, through repeated exposure to these novel patterns, their brain builds new neural architecture that supports a different way of being. So how do you actually break the chains? How do you transcend the limits that have been constructed by your conditioning, your culture, your language, and your narrative of self? The answer is through direct experience that exceeds the boundaries of your current models. You need experiences that are so novel, so incompatible with your existing frameworks, that your brain is forced to build new categories of understanding. This is why altered states of consciousness have been used throughout human history as tools for transformation. When you enter a state of consciousness that is radically different from your ordinary waking state, you experience reality in a way that your normal conceptual frameworks cannot account for. And when you return to ordinary consciousness, you bring back information that challenges your assumptions about what is real and what is possible. This does not have to involve psychedelics. can access altered states through meditation, through breath work, through prolonged fasting, through sensory deprivation, through extreme physical exertion, through deep immersion in creative practice. What matters is that you are systematically exposing yourself to states of consciousness that are outside your normal range. When you do this repeatedly, something shifts. You begin to recognize that the reality you normally inhabit is just one possible configuration of consciousness. You start to see your thoughts as events that are happening rather than truths that are fixed. You develop the capacity to observe your own mental processes with some degree of detachment. And this observation creates space. It creates a gap between stimulus and response where choice becomes possible. This is the essence of psychological freedom, not the absence of conditioning, but the awareness of conditioning as it is happening, not the elimination of automatic patterns, but the recognition of automatic patterns as automatic. Once you can see the mechanism operating, you are no longer completely subject to it. You gain some degree of agency in how you respond. But this requires practice. It requires sustained attention to the nature of your own consciousness. It requires developing the capacity to observe yourself without judgment, to notice patterns without immediately identifying with them, to hold your beliefs lightly enough that they can be updated by new information. The limits you experience are not the limits of reality. They are the limits of your current model of reality. The boundaries of your identity are not fixed features of who you are. They are constructs that were built through past experience and can be rebuilt through new experience. The chains that bind you are not external forces. They are patterns of neural activity that you are maintaining through repetition. You have more freedom than you realize. You have more plasticity than you have been taught. You have more potential than your current circumstances suggest. But that potential will remain dormant unless you actively work to realize it. This means questioning everything you believe about who you are and what is possible. This means exposing yourself to experiences that challenge your assumptions. This means developing the capacity to observe your own consciousness without getting lost in its content. This means practicing different ways of being until they become natural. The brain you have today is the result of every experience you have had up to this point. The brain you will have tomorrow will be the result of what you choose to do today. You are not stuck. You are not limited by your past. You are limited only by your willingness to engage with experiences that are outside the boundaries of your current identity. The question is not whether you can transcend your existential limits. The question is whether you will do the work, whether you will face the discomfort, whether you will risk the familiar in pursuit of the possible. Your consciousness is both the prison and the key. The chains are made of patterns that you are creating moment by moment, and in this very moment you have the capacity to create something different. The question is, will you?